Turkey's role in what's been going on around the Arab world. Uh, you were mentioning to me that Libya and Syria were two of the places where it had the most influence, possibly.
Yeah, ever since the AKP came to power in Turkey, all the way back in 2002, there's been a reimagining of Turkish foreign policy. And increasingly over time, Turkey has tried to play a very proactive role in the Middle East, and both Iran, but also in the Arab world. And so, given its geographical location, bordering Syria, bordering Iran, and Iraq, it's decided to really to leverage its strengths as a connection between NATO in the West and the Arab world and its foreign policy. And its foreign policy has been extremely aggressive, and it's also been, aggressive in a constructive way. And it's also been very idealistic in many respects. So the ideal that has been articulated in Turkish foreign policy is to have no problems with their neighbors. So there's no reason to have any conflicts that Turkey's historically been involved in with Israel, with Syria, with Iran, and others.
And so the concrete steps it was taking were mostly economic, you were saying, to build relations with other Arab countries?
Yeah, there certainly has been a large economic as well as political component, meaning that trade deals have been struck. Turkish businessmen have flooded into the Arab world. Turkish soap operas have flooded into the Arab world. Some of the most popular media now, entertainment in the Arab world is Turkish. And so there's been this cultural and economic influence that was not there probably ever since the Ottoman Empire fell. And what that has meant is that means that Turkey both has really strong interests in a number of Arab countries that are undergoing massive change, and it also has some potential influence over the course of those changes.
And what are the political ties?
Political ties, meaning active diplomatic ties with the regime, so with the Syrian regime, with Bashar al-Assad, with Gaddafi's regime in Libya would be two examples, where there have been agreements to have very constructive political relationships that facilitate these very constructive economic relationships.
So have they asserted any influence in either of these two countries, or what could they do going forward if they haven't?
Well, I think Turkey has learned a lot from what's been happening in Libya. Compared to much of Europe, Turkey has been very cautious about intervening in Libya. Turkey had around 25,000 workers in Libya. It had a lot of contracts in the energy sector and so forth. And so it was not clear that Turkey wanted an immediate call for Gaddafi's resignation, and it was very cautious about the no-fly zone. Over time, that has begun to change, and Turkey has played an active role as a NATO partner in the no-fly zone, and decided it was better to be on board rather than be completely left out of influence in that. And Turkey has been very critical of Gaddafi and has been very critical now of the Syrian regime as well. But it has learned from the Libyan experience that there are fundamental changes going on, and that it can't be the actor that prefers the status quo in all cases. And so the way that translates into the Syrian case is that Turkey has been much more aggressive in meeting with Bashar al-Assad and the regime and encouraging reform as a way of promoting stability in Syria. So it has been a voice that Syria is at least willing to hear. I don't know if they're willing to act on it, but they're at least willing to hear it because of the strong economic ties between both countries. And it's been a voice of cautious reform.
Have they come out and said anything about Syria in the last few weeks, the last 6 weeks or so?
They have. I can't give you any exact quotes, but there has been, on the one hand, diplomatic pressure that is below the level of the media, but there's also been some statements in the popular press encouraging reform in Syria by the regime. Turkey has a few challenges with Syria, and it's not clear that they're going to win, regardless of the outcome in Syria, for a few reasons. One is that their economic ties have largely been with the regime. So a lot of the deals that they've struck are based in this particular regime. And those ties are very lucrative now, and if the regime falls, they are up in the air. So on the one hand, they would like to keep the regime in place for a number of stability and economic reasons. On the other hand, I think Turkey is very concerned that they don't lose the confidence of the Syrian people. The people-to-people ties are extremely strong, and in recent years, the border between Turkey and Syria has become much more accessible, and at the moment you don't need a visa to travel from Syria into Turkey, which means that if things get really bad in Syria and people decide to flee their homes, they can actually enter Turkey without a visa, which means that Turkey faces a possible refugee crisis if it loses the confidence of the Syrian people and things become extremely violent there.
And that border's still open as of now?
As far as I know, it's still open.
And what...
I'm sure that they're watching it very closely, though.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then what happens to Turkey's interest if Assad does fall? Or, I mean, sorry, if he doesn't fall. Now they're caught between an EU that, or the Western world that just saw, Assad be a dictator, and yet they want to continue economic relations.
Yeah, again, like I say, it's not really a clear situation where they would win either way.
Yeah.
And so if Assad stays in power, and Turkey has had these mixed signals to the Assad regime, there may be some fallout from their, with their economic contracts and so forth.
Have they been going along with sanction talks? Have they been talking about making sanctions? Have you heard any?
The sanctions talks, as far as I know, have been largely EU specific, and I haven't been aware that Turkey's been involved in this.
And on that note, how does this affect their bid to be part of the EU? Is that something they're probably seriously considering, making their moves?
Turkey still would like to be part of the EU. I think that they're increasingly realistic that that's a very long process, that it's a process where there are a number of stumbling blocks, largely because of domestic politics in core countries of the EU, like France and Germany. And so while Turkey has stayed on the path of making constitutional and political and economic reforms that would all improve their trajectory in entering the EU, and has indicated that it would still like to participate in the EU, they're also investing very heavily in their position as a regional leader in Anatolia and in the broader Middle East, which has, in the end, provided some very important economic benefits. And Turkey's economy has been quite successful in the last few years.
And there's one border that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's the one with Kurdistan. Have they taken any steps during this so-called Arab Spring to kind of secure that more heavily? Because there have been smaller protests and smaller gatherings in Kurdistan every once in a while.
There have been. This is a perpetual challenge for Turkish policy. There have been some Kurdish ethnic protests in Syria on the Turkish border as well. And it appears that the elements of Kurdish civil society are very prepared to use the tactics of the protesters in the Arab Spring to push for what they are not getting out of the Turkish government. One of the challenges at the moment for the Turkish government is that elections are going to be held this summer. And so this is a campaign season. It's a season where people are preparing for potential political transition, although the ruling party is likely to stay in power, which means that the ruling party is waiting for its electoral mandate before making further changes on the Kurdish policy. Last year it tried to make some significant changes in Kurdish policy and was met by a fair amount of domestic opposition.
So have they seen protests inside Turkey?
There are some hints that Kurds are protesting in Turkey. So far we haven't seen massive rallies that I'm aware of. But indeed, that's an increasing concern for Turkey, is that Kurds will be mobilizing along the lines of the Arab protesters.
Are there any other factions inside Syria that might take advantage of this momentum from other Arab countries to kind of speak out against the government?
Syria is a very diverse place. In
Turkey.
Oh, in Turkey.
Yeah, there are other factions inside Turkey that might take advantage of this momentum.
Certainly the secular parties and the secular civil society that protested against the ruling AKP a number of years ago had a repertoire of protests, and they went out into the streets in hundreds of thousands in a couple of instances. So that repertoire is still there. I don't know that it will be particularly inspired by the Arab protests. I think that Turkey sees its challenges as somewhat different.
And are the elections likely to be a flashpoint, or you said that the ruling party is likely going to win, so it probably might not turn into one, or?
The elections will certainly be a time of political contestation, and civil society in Turkey is very vibrant right now on all sides. So there will be a lot of vociferous debates, and I think there will be some challenges both to Turkey's foreign policy and also to the way Turkey is dealing with its own domestic problems. But for the most part, I anticipate Turkish voters will vote on economic lines, and the economy in Turkey, again, has been pretty good, even compared to their neighbor Greece, which has been in great financial turmoil despite being a member of the EU.
Well, great. Thank you for talking with me, and we'll keep an eye on Turkey, that's for sure.
All right, thanks.